Hello, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 6, Episode 5 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. It's slated to come out on April 24th, 2023. I got the year right that time. And today we're going to be doing a coffee episode. So we're going to be talking about 3 ways that we made coffee. So we're doing cold brew, both hot and cold brew. So that seems like a misnomer, but essentially made cold brew, warmed it up after I made it. But also had it cold. And then we've got Stumpton's, and this is the coffee that we used for the cold brew and the pour over. Stumpton's Coffee Roasters Homestead Coffee, which we're using for a pour over and cold brew, like I said. And then we have Steeped Coffee, which is California blend. It's from, I don't even know who the coffee roaster is. I guess steepedcoffee.com, it looks like that's who the coffee roaster is. So you can make cold brew or warm brew. We made a hot brew out of this, and Ricky's been sampling them while I've been babbling on. So you can go ahead and do that one, man. I'll keep talking. I'm going to take a sip of this cold brew coffee first. Okay, that's a little weaker than I thought it was going to be. It's still pretty flavorful, though.
It is. I was going to say it is coffee water in the best way you can describe that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, oh, it was like watered down coffee. It's especially the cold I really like. It's just, it is a coffee flavored water. And it's very refreshing. And it's got that nice kind of like coffee bitterness and acidity to it. It's good.
Yeah. Now, the heated up cold brew, not so much. It
No,
kind of strips out
there.
some of the flavor. So I've had the experience where my cold brews, I like to warm them up, but I make them much stronger than this generally. This is like a really weak cold brew, and I don't know what I did wrong. So we'll have to revisit cold brew again at some point in time this podcast. But ultimately, the point that I'm making is the cold brew actually isn't bad weak.
No, it's not.
Got
It's
like
very
a
good.
caramel flavor to it when it's cold that I like a whole lot.
Yeah, I just like how refreshing it is.
Yeah.
Like, normally I drink coffee, even cold coffee, as like, this is a drink. It's got caffeine. I don't like to add a lot of stuff to it because even when I add a bunch, maybe I should say it this way. By the time I add enough stuff to it that I really, really like it, it is now so unhealthy for me. I shouldn't be drinking it. You know, by the time I put all in the cream and the sugar, I like to put in my coffee some other spices like cinnamon and nutmeg and stuff like that. It's at that point, it's like a 200-calorie drink, and I probably shouldn't be drinking that too often.
Like 30 grams of carbs, and 30 grams of those carbs are sugar.
But like, as we've talked a couple times in the past, I keep like a 1-gallon spigot in the fridge for where I'll put like drinks like teas and stuff like this. This cold brew coffee could definitely go in there.
Yeah.
That is a refreshing, just like coffee flavored beverage.
Now, I'll see if you feel the same way when we do it at its full strength. Because I don't think I've ever made cold brew for you before.
We did do it one time previously, but it was the same thing. You said it was a little bit too weak, but I still liked it. And that's why I was interested in doing this episode, because I liked it so much of when you did the little cold brew. I think you had steeped it in tea bags.
Well, no, yes, I did. That was another experiment that was similar to this, but it was intended to be drank hot. It just had gotten cold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually brewed it hot and it got cold.
Gotcha.
This is a completely different brewing process. Essentially, what you do is you grind your coffee more rough. It's not as fine grind, and then you put it in like a tea bag or something, and you want about 100 grams to I think a pint or something like that.
Okay.
And I think I put 75 in there, or 60 or something. It just must not have been enough because it was a smaller amount. So I got my math wrong on that for this one. So this is actual cold brew. And cold brew generally it has acid and some other tannic qualities and some caramels and things like that you get out of these types of coffees. But it doesn't have all of the bitterness of most of these coffees. Now, what did you think about the steeped coffee?
And steeped is the one with the coaster, right?
Yeah, steeped is the one with the coaster.
Okay, that's my second favorite.
Okay.
That's a full strength coffee that's got the acidity, it's got the bitterness. but it's not as kind of like astringent as some of the other ones that I tasted in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta say, we kind of talked about before. Drip coffee is how I first ever made coffee because it was cheap and I was a poor college student. And then when I had money, I got away from that. And I think at the same time I got a real coffee machine,
Mm-hmm.
I started buying better quality coffee. And so I attributed that to, man, there's a reason there's a machine for this. This is so much better than what I was doing. And now I'm maybe thinking maybe what I was doing the first time was a really good way to make coffee, doing this. But I just was buying really bad coffee.
Yep.
So it didn't feel like it.
So we did pour over coffee today. You meant pour over coffee because drip coffee is what you do through a machine.
Well, then I take it all back. Because the machine, I do like the drip out of the machine better because this is the drip right here. Right?
No, none of these are drip coffee. No, none of these are drip.
See, now you've got me all confused.
This is steeped.
Okay.
So these were tea bags. This
Yeah,
is
okay,
tea style.
okay. Yep,
this is cold brew, and this is pour over.
Okay, yes. So, to put it back in the correct way now for everybody, the steeped coffee in the tea bags is my second favorite. Mm-hmm. I have never tried to do that, but maybe I will start doing that because I really do like that. And I do like it a little bit better than the pour over, which is what I used to do in college.
Yeah. Now, pour over coffee is really good, but there's we just did it straight, and the coffee that I used is a really good coffee to do pour over. But I'm kind of like you. I like to put a little bit of salt generally in mine to reduce the acidity. I'll put some cinnamon or some clove in it to kind of bring up some of those spiced flavors, just because I like to play around with it. So sometimes I like pour over coffee to be like kind of robust and everything like that. Sometimes I like it to be a little bit more acidic. Today, out of all three of these, my favorite is the steeped. The steeped coffee, the one that's done like a tea bag. Just straight, without any cream, without any sugar, without adding any cinnamon, spice, salt, anything like that. And this is the fifth time I've had this because I think there was 5 servings of it. There was only one left.
Yeah.
And I just kind of inhaled that stuff all the other times I had it. Now I really like it with some cream in it. 2 tablespoons of cream and about 16 ounces of coffee, which is about 2 cups. I really dig the pour over coffee with a little bit of cream in it. I think that's just like chef's kiss.
Yeah, it does change the mouthfeel, and a little bit of fat in it does change the flavor.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's it adds creaminess to it that you just don't get, so it feels less like you're having water. But I would drink this any day, just straight up, no problem. The cold brew I don't like because it doesn't meet my standards, and I feel like it wasn't as good of a, I didn't brew this as well as I could have.
Yeah.
So I want to mulligan on that, and I'm just going to say, for what it is, I'm going to experiment with different amounts of cold brew to see if I can reproduce the caramel taste, but get more coffee and nuttiness into it also.
Okay.
But I've had this in cold brew before, and Stumpton's Brewers Homestead, and it's Holler Mountain. Those 2 coffees are really fantastic cold brews. I just love them. I wouldn't suggest doing an undermade cold brew and then making it and then heating it up. That just seems to kill the flavors.
Yeah, the heating it up, it warm, it wasn't quite as nice. It's not bad, but what I really like about the cold is how refreshing it is. And once you heat it up, you take away that refreshing part.
Well, now when it cools off, when it's piping hot, it's not nearly as good, but it brings back some of those flavors after you heat it up. It's got a little bit of that caramel flavor on the tail end now. So I enjoy that. And the pour over, I think, is my second favorite out of these.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely is. I just had another sip of it. So the pour over has all the qualities that I would want the cold brew to have with more bitterness and acidity, which is what you would. I mean, you're just going to get a bit of that in anything that you do.
Yeah, that's just coffee.
Yeah, it's just coffee. I like a little bit of bitterness to balance out the stuff, but that's also why I like to put a little bit of cream in it, because that makes it any coffee that I make a little bit more balanced in my mind. But yeah, I mean, I think this was a fun experiment. You guys that are out there got to listen to us just rattle on about 10 minutes about coffee. I know that Ricky isn't as big of a coffee lover, so next time we're doing an episode that's all for Ricky about tea. Um, yeah, so, but if you can get steeped coffee, that's the brand, Steeped, and it's got like a little periscope on it, you should totally try that. It is absolutely worth it. Or if you can get some tea bags, like the type that you actually steep loose leaf tea in, you could try this on your own because we did something similar to this last year. We just didn't put enough coffee in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that said, let's talk about our first topic 10 minutes in. Tesla employees are sharing customer footage, and, that's a privacy violation. Have you researched that? Did you look into that?
I did research that, and I see they have been accused of it. I don't think they've been proven to be doing it yet, but it is certainly a concern. And I think we've maybe brought this up in the past. If we haven't, that really is one of my strong arguments for better privacy laws.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can make whatever contract you want as the company and just be saying like, okay, yeah, your information company will never sell your information, will never do this, will never do that, which is fine, and they can intend to never do those things, but they still have your information if they get hacked. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing stopping a bad actor employee from just releasing stuff because they've got access to it.
Right.
It becomes like a trust me bro situation. We promise we won't do it. And sure, they'll get in trouble if they do it, but that doesn't necessarily benefit you. If your social security number and things like that get leaked from, your bank account, yeah, your bank's going to get in trouble. But that doesn't, you as the person who's about to have their identity stolen, that does not help you. Generally, even in class actions, the banks pay a lot of money, but there's so many on top of them. You, the individual, do not ever get very much. So, you're still going to take that financial hit of having to now get, identity protections and going through all that stuff, So, I don't know exactly what footage. None of the articles would commit to exactly what the footage from the Tesla or the kind of car stuff was. If it was like video footage of inside the car, or
it was inside and outside the car.
Okay.
So it definitely did happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to find the source that I have on that.
Okay. It just might have now gotten legal enough. Nobody wants to say it definitely happened.
Maybe. The reason I know that it definitely did happen is some of the footage actually got out.
Oh,
and
okay.
So one guy was naked. Near his, he was like in the middle of the night, had to go out to his car. He was naked,
Mm-hmm.
so he went to the car, and they have footage of him doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think one of the footages was of a couple doing stuff
Mm-hmm.
in their car. One was of something else, but Tesla has this footage because it helps them to do security monitoring
Mm-hmm.
and other things like that. So there is a benefit to it. But I agree with you. As a person who has had to suffer through some privacy violations and had to suffer through, so I didn't commit the privacy violation. I had my identity stolen and some of my stuff taken illegally in the past when I was much younger, before the information age that we're in now. It was it was really difficult to recover from. It not impossible, and I've done well without having great credit for a long time. So you can recover from it. It's not an unrecoverable thing, but it would have been a whole lot easier for me to have and do things if I hadn't have had that happen. So, and knowing our privacy laws, America does have some pretty strict laws around medical stuff
Mm-hmm.
and some other laws around certain privacy things and stuff like that. But when it comes to corporations, we just kind of slap them on the wrist. And globally we do that. Google and Microsoft and Facebook have all been slapped with fines in different places in the EU. And they're like $25,000 or $25 million, like stuff that's a 1% or less than 1% of their revenue for a quarter. We're not talking about a year, And they're just like, look, this we can just build this fine into our operating costs and just keep doing the thing that we're getting fined for.
Oh yeah, especially for the people that like sell privacy information. It's like, oh, did I get caught selling a piece of information I shouldn't have? Well, I made 500 million selling all that data. I got fined 100 million. That's worth it.
Yeah.
I still made 400 million out of that.
I mean, that's like 20%. That would be a pretty significant hit. I think 100 million, like if they got fined 100 million, that might actually make them stop, because with their operating costs and everything, that might actually hit their bottom line. And a loss of that much in a quarter may, like if they were paying 500 million a year, that may, and their total profit was 20 million. That's still 20% of their overall operating costs. That may hit their stock price too. But now if it was only $100,000 for the entire year, and which is
yeah, it depends on how big the company is, because I've been keeping a close eye on financial stuff in the U.S. for the past couple months, and you'll see these financial institutions that make tens of billions of dollars or hundreds of billions of dollars, and they'll go in and they'll get fined for something that looks like a huge eye-opening amount, like $600 million.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, that's a real fine. But then you sit down and be like, yeah, but they made 15 billion off of that process.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And it's like, you find them what sounds like a lot of money. Like if you put in the news, I find X company 600 million, people say, whoa, that's a ton of money. But when you look at how much money they made doing the thing they got fined for, if they got fined less than the money they made, why would they not do it again?
Yeah.
Because they made money doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We're exactly saying the same thing at that point. I just think that in this particular thing, it also impacts things like people, there's other things. Like people don't want people to see them in their most, or they don't want to spread around when they're vulnerable. And while nudity isn't like the worst thing that could happen, being nude can really, and that being spread out into the internet, that can really affect people, especially women. Women are mostly victimized by these things, but men too. I mean, it's not like men don't get body shamed or have like weird stuff. We had this whole thing about Arnold Schwarzenegger when he hit 70, started looking like a man that was 70, and so people were like, he looks like trash now. He looks great for a man who's 70. Yeah, he looks amazing. What are you talking about? So, we do this. So talking about, this sort of junk that happens, these privacy violations, that just stinks.
Yeah, it's
all
huge.
to high heaven. Yeah, it's terrible. And I agree. We need to have more accountability. There should be, like maybe actual prison time for, doing stuff like that, where not just the employee that committed the crime, but maybe the CEO or something like that is held accountable for that stuff too, if they don't take certain steps to prevent that.
Yeah, in all honesty, I agree with you there. I think that's the real thing we have to figure out. Because we let corporations run this very fine line where in many ways they are a business and an entity. So how do you throw somebody in jail for certain things? So like let's say Google gets hacked and they lose a ton of privacy data and it was their responsibility to keep it there. Well, you can go, I guess, arrest the CEO, but did the CEO really have anything to do with that? Like, where's the responsibility? That's hard. But on the same time, we also let, like the way a lot of tax laws and things like that work, we get to treat companies almost like they're individuals. So they ride this line where they get the best of being a group, so it's hard to punish individual people in it. And they also then often get a lot of the best of being an individual entity. So we got to choose a lane here, because you're right, at a certain level, when all you can do is fine people money, and there's often generally limits on how much you can fine and things like that, it becomes ineffective. You either got to start saying, okay, look, you're a corporate entity. You don't have individual human protections. You're just an entity that makes money.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do something that's wrong, I can fine you an amount of money that is more than what you made.
Yeah.
So if you did that thing that you made 500 million on, I'm going to fine you, 700 million.
700 million. Yep.
Yep. Now, not only did you make no money doing it, you've lost money to the rest of your stuff.
And there should be some sort of thing where the majority of that goes to the, like, by law, 70% or 80% of that has to go to the fees for it can be no more than like 20%, and 70 or 80% of that fine has to go to the victims.
Yeah, and there should be things like that. Like if you're fining someone, apart from whatever legal you got to go through to actually be able to collect the fines, that should be going towards whatever other party was injured doing the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because hopefully you have those laws because you're trying to protect somebody from something.
Yeah.
So if that guy who walked out naked got leaked out on the internet, and you go out and you find them, however much money, he becomes one person. You leaked 10,000 people's stuff. All 10,000 of those people get a little something back from the fine. Not that it really necessarily helps them, but if we were fining enough that it was actually prohibitive, it probably would do a lot better than today.
Yeah.
Where what those people have to do is then go get a class action lawsuit and let a bunch of lawyers go after them. And the lawyers keep out 80%, and then 20% goes out to the people. And there's
oftentimes it's less than that once the court fees and everything, or the government and the lawyers make the money off that. Not the people.
They do. And and so many people can jump on a class action, because it's as simple as generally signing a form, So the people that are most impacted don't necessarily get any more than just random guy who saw it on the news and said, "Oh yeah, I guess I was affected by that." So you're right. There's a lot of things that have to be worked on there. I think it does come from just we give companies the same protections we often give individuals, at the same time letting them not be accountable for things like jail time most of the time, because it's hard to pin down it is this person's fault. Now in terms of the leaked stuff for like the cars, maybe they can get that down to a couple employees. It's like it was that guy who put it up on the internet.
The problem with that is there are supposed to be protections in place. There's things like data masking and like having just limited access to stuff. Employees that don't need to have access to those things, administrators that don't need to have access to them, should be restricted from having access to that data.
They should be. And I don't know, you know a little bit more about it than I mean. Was it somebody who shouldn't have had access to that system that was able to get it?
Hold on a second. Okay. We're back.
So is there staff that got in there that shouldn't? Because that's then a different kind of an issue.
That seems to be the case here.
Okay.
So I looked it up. There's a Reuters article, Reuters, I don't know exactly. I think it's pronounced Reuters. But there's a Reuters article that talks about that workers from Tesla have come out and said, yeah, we were accessing people's video. We were just able to willy-nilly see into the videos. We were able to spread them around. There was no sorts of digital rights management or anything like that. We can put stuff on textbooks that keep people from being able to download it, and we can't do that for a video.
Yeah, you're right. At that point, you probably should still punish the people who actually put it up on the internet.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a bigger company security problem.
Now, I don't know that it actually got onto the internet. I think they were just passing it around internally.
Okay, and that is probably where all the articles I read going with the claim to be.
Yeah.
Because if they don't have, it didn't make it to YouTube or something, they can't prove it. It's just a bunch of workers saying you can do it.
Now, there are some people that claim to have the video, so I don't know. So it may be, and just being all fair, the articles that I've read have said that it definitely happened. But in the information age that we live in today, you can't believe everything that's on the internet. So I don't want to spread disinformation or anything like that or defame someone. But if there are Tesla employees saying, hey, we actually did this, that's a confession. And, they're saying they did it themselves.
Yeah.
So, what do you what do you do with that?
Yep.
You know, so that's where I got this from, and it specifically talks about that in the customer privacy notice, camera recordings are supposed to remain anonymous and not linked to your vehicle, but they are.
Ooh, yeah, that's a rough one.
Yeah. So they're not data masking. They're not doing any sort of digital rights management or least privilege management or anything like that they should be doing for this data. So
so I guess I'm even wondering a little bit about that policy. So they're saying they can get the video in, but not link it to your vehicle.
Yep.
Why are you recording me then?
Yeah.
Like, if it's not so that if someone steals my car at 2 a.m., you can see who stole my car, why do you care? Exactly.
What do you need this information for?
Yeah, that's... I mean, like, it makes sense to me why on the back end they can view the vehicle, because I think that's the only time that's actually super useful.
Yeah.
Unless you're trying to data mine for something else, like what music people are listening to or what they're talking about.
It's got eye tracking and all sorts of things like that. Now, supposedly it's to help with things like autopilot and improvements for things like autopilot. But whether we're talking about automated, being able to have level 3 driving automation or something like that, this is not going to help with any of that if you're just passing information around, not protecting people's privacy, doing stuff like that. That's just going to make people not want to have those features. They'll hack their car, they'll turn those things off. Most of the people that buy these things are technical people anyways.
Yeah, and again, I think that's one of the things you got to be so careful about. Like, if you don't do your security right, that'll hurt any company. But when you're a company that deals so much with people in particular industries that understand those things better, like that's got to be so much worse. Because that's a good point. Like, I know a couple people with those cars, but all of them are like tech people.
Yep.
If they're not tech, they're in some sort of like engineering-ish like STEM field.
Yeah. So if you push people enough, they'll quit using your product or whatever. That is one of the things we're probably going to talk about with like physical versus digital media later this year. I know we talk about that about once a.
It's a good update. It changes every year.
It doesn't though. That's the problem.
Well, I would say things continue to progress every year.
Yeah, things continue to progress every year. That's very true. I don't have anything else to say about that. I'm probably never going to buy a Tesla, just because stuff like that's happening.
That's rough.
Super Mario Brothers movie breaks records at the box office. We were talking about gaming and ROMs and stuff like that. I own a Nintendo Switch. I own a Nintendo Switch. The Switch.
No, now you're just turning into Mario.
Yeah. Well, I love there's a lot of stuff from Nintendo that's very nostalgic for me. Had that Game Boy Advance in the last episode. I really want to see this movie. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, yeah?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I was waiting because I was worried that it was going to be bad. So many people talked about it being bad, and I hate going to movie theaters.
Yeah.
I absolutely despise so on a little tangent, the people that run like the entertainment industry in America, whether it's music, movies, anything like that, the executives and the people, they are so concerned about profit and they think we need them, like they are important. And that's just not true. You don't need music. You don't need art. You don't need movies. Aside from something that maybe is an instructional video on how to do something that's life-saving. So YouTube has more value than any movie that has ever been made, as far as I'm concerned. And so I don't want to spend my hard-earned money, especially as expensive as it is, on something like this unless I know it's going to be a good experience.
Yeah, I think that's the hit. I will watch a bad movie at home and enjoy just being to watch a bad movie. I don't want to go watch a bad movie in a theater. But here's the thing. I don't have a choice because I've got a 5-year-old. So that's why I was surprised. Like, oh, you haven't seen it yet? I mean, you always see movies before I do. But I was like, oh, yeah, but because I had to see it day one because my kid was like, oh, my gosh, Mario movie.
Well, it's got Jack Black in it too, and I really enjoy that guy's stuff.
Look,
So
I'm gonna be honest with you. It's not a bad movie.
okay,
I'm not gonna say it's an amazing movie, but as a kids movie, it's a pretty good kids movie. But Jack Black is so good in that movie.
okay, that's why I want to go see it because I mean, like I love to watch Jablinski games. I like most of his other comedy movies. You know, Tenacious D stuff's always good, and then seeing them in concert is so like he's just such a big personality. That I really like the comedy of that. It's like seeing Alton Brown or the Mythbusters do their show or something like that. There's just like a certain energy there that just, you know, puts a smile on my face.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So I really want to see the movie now because it's, you know,
Yeah,
Jack Black,
I mean,
and he did a great job.
look, I don't remember if they showed it in the trailers, but I mean, like Jack Black has songs. Like there are musical parts to this movie,
I did not know that.
and they are great.
Okay. I might be buying the soundtrack too. I know
Well,
I'll probably buy the like movie when it comes out, but yeah.
There's not enough music, I think, to warrant a soundtrack purchase in terms of like what Jack Black does, but he's got a couple scenes where he's singing and it's great.
Yeah, well, I mean, I might still do it. Like, I mean, you can buy, you know, just individual songs and stuff like that too. I mean, I got the Encanto soundtrack just because I like 3 songs off of it.
Yeah, but I guess again, let me set that expectation. These are very short,
Yeah.
like little musical things that are like specifically for kids and not. They are musical because there is music playing and he is singing. It is not, I would call, a song.
A song, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I got you. Well, if it comes out on a soundtrack and it's like actually got those songs in it, I may still buy it.
It's good though. I do recommend, especially if you've got kids that want to go see it. It is one of the more tolerable kids movies that I've gone and watched.
Okay. That's pretty good praise. I'm not expecting for it to be something like Akira or the Avengers or something that I like go in and I'm like, oh, this is one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah. It's not Toy Story. It's not some of the Disney movies, but it is. You know, if I compare it to other movies I have had to watch with a small child, like the Paw Patrol movie, you know, it's up there.
Much better than that.
Paw Patrol movie was actually not that bad,
not that
but
bad.
I mean, it was on par or maybe even a little bit better. Especially if you, as an adult, have played a lot of the games. They do a good job of putting in, like, little Easter eggs, even from, like, really early games. So, like, there are, like, Easter egg things for the original Marios, and it goes in, there's, like, the character, the little toad you see in all the trailers, is the, like, adventure toad from the game.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of his lines from the games.
Yeah.
And, you know, the other toads who are not the adventuring toads are not like that. So, like, individual characters have, like, some personality that, like, lines up with how they are.
That's pretty awesome.
You know, I'm even going to say, I don't think the voice matches as well as it could. But even Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong was pretty good.
Okay, that's pretty great. I mean, if there was a person that I could turn into Donkey Kong, I would probably want a stoner who is really chill. Because Donkey Kong's a giant monster of a thing that likes to throw barrels when he's mad.
if they could have gotten Seth Rogen to do some sort of accent, I think I would have liked it a little bit better. But I mean, they pull off, I think, really most of the characters very well.
Okay, I know there was some concern about Chris Pratt being, you know, Mario and everything like that, but you know.
Yeah, I will say I was not excited about that going into it, but at the same time, the way the story kind of presents everything, it didn't pull me out. Like once you get past the first like 5-10 minutes, you're used to it.
I think for me, one of the reasons I didn't really get worried about that, you know, I was worried about the movie but not being great, but I didn't, was Henry Cavill as the Witcher. I really, like at the beginning, I was like, you know, I guess he'll be better as the Witcher because he doesn't like to smile and he's always like kind of gloomy and everything. But he was so passionate about that, and he did such a good job of just portraying Geralt that I felt like I gotta not judge things like that based off of their performance in another movie that you know was also beloved to me. You know, so talking about Man of Steel, not smiling as Superman kind of makes it a little less Superman, you know, but okay, I get it. And I think that's more of a director's like kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think the way they went about the movie helped it a lot in that regard. Cause you're right. I don't think anyone except for maybe Jack Black is really putting in a whole lot of emotion into the act. But there's a lot of like bad things happening.
Yeah.
As you saw from the trailer, just like Bowser kind of going to war and doing his stuff. And like there's lots of like threats of death and things. But it's treated almost like you would treat death in a video game. It's a more casual, like, no one's like, woo, I'm gonna die now or anything. But like at the same time, nobody is like bawling their eyes out, and like, it's more like a cartoonish violence sort of thing.
Okay.
So them not being as strongly emotionally invested kind of makes sense in that regard.
Okay. Well, so one other movie I wanted to talk about, the Dungeons and Dragons movie, because there was that whole thing with Hasbro and them like trying to monetize people, and I was like, I don't even know that I want to go see this movie, but now that I've heard about it, and there was like that kind of change, I kind of feel like I can go see it now. So the change that I'm referring to is Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast reversed their decision to make D&D 1 into like this very closed source thing, and like really hurt their community that has really held them up, because there was such a backlash and even some like legal stuff that came out of that, where that probably wasn't legal for them to do that anyways. So like being able to change that stuff and they made the open gaming license even more open when it comes down to it. I think that's reasonable. I still don't think they're the good guys or anything like that. I'm not suddenly celebrating their awesomeness, but that does also lend a little bit more credibility to, okay, well, if they're not behaving bad, maybe I can go see this movie and it not be a problem.
Yeah, and I kind of see it the same way. Like, I've boycotted lots of companies. Like, I don't play Blizzard stuff anymore. I don't play EA stuff. But that's because they keep kind of displaying bad behavior. Whereas, at least for now, as much as many people, including myself, think they will try and go back to this, that is not something they are actively pursuing.
Right.
So, yeah, I'll give you that. I'm going to go see it. I'm actually going to go see it later today.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that too.
Yeah, because my wife has already seen it and she loved it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't play D&D. Yep. So I feel like as someone who does play D&D, I have the potential to like it even more.
Yeah. It's supposed to be like really good at capturing the classes and some of the like inside jokes that people that play D&D do. And it's like if the Marvel movies were a D&D movie.
Gotcha.
From what I understand, or a fantasy movie, which there are like fantasy Marvel characters, so I could see how how that would kind of work out, and I'm sold. That sounds like a good thing for me, so I'm willing to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she convinced me to go down to the Cinnabole because whatever it was, the tap house, whatever it's called,
the Ale House, the dinner and movie place.
It's the Alamo something.
Yeah, Alamo Tap House.
Yeah. They had a showing today, but it was too full. So we're going to the Cinna Bistro because she likes to. Now that she's got the opportunity and has had that taste of someone will bring me a mixed drink to my seat, she doesn't want to give that up, which I don't blame her.
I agree completely. Sitting down and watching Tetris. Okay, so there's another movie that you should go watch. Tetris.
Really? Okay.
Good. It is so good. Like,
is that out now?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So it was an Apple Plus movie, but they're playing it at the Alamo Draft House.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we went and saw it with a friend of ours, and I got to have a burger, which was an okay burger. The food was pretty good for not for what it costs. Pretty good popcorn. Really like the popcorn. Great beer. So I got to have a great beer while I'm watching this hilarious real life story. Now, they fictionalize some of the events in it, but there's a lot of fun and hilarity, and it's fairly heartwarming. It's like if the Imitation Game, the one that had Benjamin Cumberbatch, that's his name, right? Benjamin Cumberbatch. Yeah. The guy that plays Smaug and Doctor Strange. That about Alan Turing, that movie, which was sad.
Yeah.
It's like if that had a happy ending.
Okay.
So I really enjoyed it. It was a pretty good movie. I would suggest that one too. So I'm going to go see Dungeons and Dragons too.
There you go.
And I'm kind of excited for Chris Pine as a bard. So, do you have anything else you want to say about that?
No, just that I'm looking forward to it. And I guess, if you're interested in Super Mario, you haven't seen it, Ricky's thumbs up.
All right, cool. Well then, this has been Season 6, Episode 5 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.